Hi everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. We're going to be doing a general reading for today. We're going to be incorporating our Golden Art Nouveau deck as well as our Angel Therapy deck by Doreen Virtue. I'm going to be really transparent with you guys. My energy's a little bit off. There's just like a lot going on in the collective. Um, and frankly speaking, I'm just pissed. I'm pissed. I'm not really going to sugarcoat that. I'm not really going to get into it for this reading, but I am going to do a collective reading to see what we can do in terms of what's within our control, and then also just like some steps that we can take for self-care, as well as just having that sense of community. So we're going to see what comes out for today. Just sorry about my box because I had a little bit of an impromptu just now. So I hope everyone is feeling relatively okay. Again, there's a lot going on, so it's okay for things to just feel very surreal. It's okay to be grieving in real time. It's okay to be pissed. Just honor those feelings. Again, we're not trying to really do emotional avoidance, and there's a lot going on. And I'm not gonna get on this platform and pretend like things are all love and light because it's not. It's not all love and light right now. And we're gonna have to sit with those heavy feelings as we navigate moving forward. But for now, we're gonna just do a general reading to see what we need right now. Okay. So before we get into it, I'm going to do our sound cleansing as always. Okay. Let's get into it. Okay. We are going to call upon our ancestors closest to the sun, our spirit guides, our angels, whoever helps us to feel divinely protected in this moment. Any negative intentions, muttering spirits, any evil eye is not welcome here. And we're going to transmute any negativity into prosperity, peace, and love. Okay? Let's get into it. All right. What do we need to hear? What do we need to hear? 3 of coins. 3 of coins. That's pretty self-explanatory. So right now, what we really need to focus on as the collective energy right now, the collaboration. Collaboration is really important. So let's focus on the symbolism and the energy in this card. So you have multiple experts in different fields coming together to work on this project or this endeavor. Okay. So, first thing that comes to mind is really focusing on that sense of community, the hyper individualism, and the if it's not directly impacting me, it's not my problem mentality isn't really working right now. And a lot of times, what tends to happen when this card comes out, this is a call to action to find your community, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, build on it, and help others who might not have the same level experience as you do. Okay. So this could be calling upon that inner leader, calling upon that crisis intervention piece that you've always had within you. Okay, so this is a group of individuals who are coming together that you normally might not anticipate coming together. Okay, this is kind of almost like where maybe in the past you were competing with each other, but the bigger picture here is coming into play, and you're setting aside your differences, and you are saying like, okay, like I know like we're in our respective fields, but there are bigger things at play here, and we need to come together to problem solve. So that's a little bit of the energy that I'm getting. So another thing that this reminds me of is really being honest with yourself in terms of your current line of work. So again, like let's say you have been in a specific field for however long and you are just feeling like it's not resonating anymore. This is asking you to like take like a really honest self inventory, and if you need to make a shift so that you are engaging in more meaningful work, that's what this is suggesting a little bit. Again, like this isn't like saying like quit your job and like go join the Red Cross unless that's something that you feel called to do and you've been kind of debating like for however long, right? But what this is asking you to do is to be really honest with yourself involving what makes you feel fulfilled and then taking realistic action steps towards that, right? So this could even be like volunteering, maybe like collaborating with a couple of nonprofits, maybe collaborating with your local community center, things like that, right? So something that you notice is that we kind of have a little bit of like different groups on the fence. So you have the individuals who are more so like I like to call it like individual mindset versus like community mindset or collective mindset. And again, neither of these are good or bad because everyone's spiritual journey is different, right? So like if you have a higher level of emotional awareness, you might get more easily frustrated with people because they're focusing on like the more like surface level, like shallow things versus like the bigger picture of like how we can all succeed and how we can reduce human suffering, right? So that's a little bit of the energy that I'm getting from that Three of Coins. You might have opportunities to collaborate with other individuals to help propel humanity in some way. And like, don't underestimate the the power of just being in contact with a one individual, right? So there was something that I used to say like a while ago back when I was in my undergrad. If I can help at least one person, I've done my job, right? Because also something that you notice in like this country is we're very like go big, go home, in terms of like goals, in terms of projects. And also that is the same mentality that gets us into a lot of trouble, right? Gets us into a lot of trouble. We start making commitments that we might not necessarily be able to fulfill, okay? And that erodes trust. When you start eroding trust, the level of micro betrayals there, it takes so much time to build that back up, right? So again, this is I think we talked a little bit about this in the past with like how we all have like a lot of like subconscious people pleasing tendencies, and that very much has to do with how we're conditioned, right? We'll get into that. I don't want to go on a tangent here, but all right. So Three of Coins, focus on what you're good at. How can you utilize that to collaborate with others, and then also engaging in meaningful work, right? So if you've been kind of feeling like you've been on this hamster wheel and you're going through the motions, this is just asking you to like tap into like what drives that sense of community for you and like look into that, right? And again, like we want to be very clear here with like the realistic action steps, right? Do not do anything impulsive. Do not just drop everything because you're like, I feel called to. No, absolutely not. That does not make sense. That doesn't position you in a good way. So you have to make sure that you're prioritizing yourself so that you can also help others, right? Just because we're being called to collaborate doesn't mean, like throw caution to the wind and put yourself in a worse position. Because then you're going to be stressed out, and then how are you going to help anybody if you're stressed, right? So let's see. Let's get a couple of clarifying cards and then we can move on to our angel therapy, okay? Strength. Strength. Okay. So hold on, put the deck down. I need more space on my desk. All right. So you're gonna need to call upon your inner strength and also remind yourself that you're a lot stronger than you think you are. Okay. So in terms of collaboration, this might be triggering for you. You might have trust issues with your fellow human beings. Like something from the past might be creating blockages that you're like, I don't really want to call on community. I can't really trust people. They've let me down. This is saying that you're going to have to remain strong and go into it with the understanding that other people's actions has nothing to do with me. So stand in your integrity, stand strong, and then remember that you've gotten through tough times in the past already. So you're going to be able to get through this as well. Okay. And then this is also giving me the sense of you got to kind of tap into that inner beast, right? So again, even though we're human beings, like we're mammals, right? And because we're mammals, oftentimes like we go into that they call it like the reptile brain or like caveman brain, right? So it's basically channeling that for action oriented steps, right? So like channeling that to engage in motivation. So you want to tap into your inner, yeah, I don't really like the term, but like maybe like your inner like spirit animal, like who brings you strength when you're connecting with the elemental forces, right? Because it's the fire card. Fire's action oriented, right? So like maybe you've been worried about things or you've been kind of feeling stuck. This is saying like, okay, like again, like what are the realistic action steps? And then how can I remain strong during difficult times, right? Okay. I'm gonna switch it up to the angel therapy decks. I'm being called to give us a little bit more of like solution focused steps and things to be aware of, okay? But again, for right now, you're going to be called to work with individuals that maybe you never anticipated working with, or like you thought about working with them, but there's like certain things that didn't line up. This is big picture, okay? So remember, you don't need to like be best friends with someone in order to get the job done, okay? Because this is like big picture, like collective healing energy here right now, okay? At least that's how I'm interpreting this. And then calling upon your strengths and like tapping into that inner drive, the inner animal that helps you to get to where you need to be. Okay. So let's see what we got here. All right, angels, what do we need to know? What are steps that we got to take? Be willing to forgive. You can't see this. Oh my goodness. Okay. Be willing to forgive. Ask the angels to clear your mind and body of past pain in exchange for peacefulness. All right, so that goes a couple different ways here because when you first hear that, you're like, well, I don't want to forgive little Jimmy from, 3 years ago when we were dating or whatever it is, right? But this is also like forgiving yourself. This is mainly like forgiving yourself or this is forgiving yourself for what you didn't know at the time. Okay. So oftentimes when we have encounters with individuals and there's like again either like betrayal or there's miscommunication or there's unspoken expectations or things that are happening that make us feel like we're the problem, we blame ourselves. You see this a lot. I'll give you like an example, right? So like if someone leaves a marriage, right? So like if someone like leaves the marriage, you start saying like, well, how could I have been a better spouse? And like, what could I have done differently? And this is and this, like, how can I have seen the signs at the moment, right? You got to forgive yourself because as human beings, we're not mind readers, right? If there isn't clear communication, how would you know that someone is unhappy with themselves or unhappy with the situation or other circumstances that are outside of your control, right? And this also has to do with like a bigger picture piece as well. Human beings by nature, because we are inherently imperfect, we have a tendency to abuse things if given the opportunity. Okay. And I'll take that with a grain of salt, right? Because I'm not making a justification for like maladaptive behavior or mistreatment of anyone, anything like that. Okay. This goes back to like if you look at the historical context of human beings, what are oftentimes the driving force for certain controversial and like inexcusable behavior. You got God, glory, and gold, right? So this also has to do with if left unchecked. This is why accountability is so important. And then when we talk about like the collective piece, oftentimes we are too tired and burnt out to speak up and voice our opinions. And this is also like forgiving others, right? For not doing what we need them to do, right? And the reason why, again, like this is like a higher level of like forgiveness, okay? When you go into the realm of responsibilities, when you go into the realm of ethical obligations, right? There's a saying that what is ethical is not always legal, and then what is legal is not always ethical, right? And we don't really know like the logistics behind certain things unless like you're in the field, right? But like regardless of the fact, outside looking in, like we don't really care about the logistics. Like we want you to do what you say you're gonna do, right? And we have to like forgive those that are tied up in these systems that might be doing the best that they can, and outside looking in, we're like, it's not enough. And I would agree, it's not enough, right? But when you look at the intricacies of these institutions and systems, like it's not always that black and white and that simple, right? So this is like forgiving ourselves and then forgiving others who might be the representatives of responsibilities who could be trying, but we don't see it as such. We see, well, what the hell are you doing, right? Like I need you to like get on top of it, right? Like stay on your stuff. Let's see, what else do we got? What else do we got? Yeah, this one's like a lot of this specific reading is like very there's a lot of anger and frustration here. And then there's also a lot of grieving, which makes sense given everything, right? So let's see what we got. So forgiving yourself, okay? And there's also a little bit of shame with that. So I kind of want to touch base with that in a second. Hold on. What do we need to know? Throat chakra. Throat chakra, okay? The angels are helping you lovingly speak your truth, okay? So let's go to this card. Okay. So when we are navigating difficult conversations, oftentimes it's hard to not get emotional. And because when we're triggered, we don't necessarily have the correct words or like the proper way of voicing certain things. So this is asking you to really practice responding, not reacting. Okay. Because have you ever tried to like convince someone of something and you start screaming at them, like, and like you notice like 3 seconds in, like they're checked out and they're not even like listening to what you have to say? That's because that's not an effective way of communicating, right? So when you are triggered, your role there, if we're talking about things that are within our control, is to voice your concerns and voice your opinions in an assertive, okay, I'm not going to go there, but in an assertive but respectful way, right? And again, I understand the premise and the thought process behind I'm going to give you that same energy that you give me, right? But if we're talking about like spiritual ascension and like going to a higher level of collective love and healing, right? You don't want to do tit for tat, right? Because like it feels great in the moment, but then do you get closer to your goals, right? Or do you notice that that disconnection just gets deeper, right? So you want to voice your opinion and you want to speak your truth, but you want to do it in a respectful way where you're taking the other person's values into consideration as you're communicating this, right? Because again, if we go from 0 to 1,000 and I'm just like da 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 this that euro whatever it is, right? Like there, whatever opportunity we have to like genuinely voice concern and cater to our values as well as tap into the other person's values so that they can kind of bridge the gap themselves is gone, right? And like we've all gone through these periods where it's just like, oh, like I'm pissed and I'm gonna like voice my concerns, and here's where I need you to like listen to me. And then the reptile brain kicks in, right? The aggressive the aggressive communication kicks in, right? We don't want to do aggressive because if we're aggressive, then our talking point goes out the window, our effectiveness goes out the window. The person is now looking at us like we're emotionally unstable or whatever it is, and now they're leveraging that and like our power gets given away, right? So we don't want to do aggressive. We want to do assertive and respectful and tap into what the other person values, right? So I don't know if you remember a past reading that we touched on, but we ended up discussing like one person might very much value finances and another person values family, right? So if you're trying to verbalize to a person who values finances and you're just like, hey, like from a financial standpoint, this doesn't make sense. Like, this actually makes it worse for us in the long term, right? And then also, like, it's not a good look if you're trying to build like business connections and you're engaging in this type of behavior, like that doesn't make you look good, right? Like, and I can understand in the past, like you have like made these calls and at the time it felt like a good business move, right? But I need you to like really like take a step back and understand that this doesn't make sense financially for us to do this, right? In the bigger picture. When you start catering to other people's values, right? Same way, we can reverse it if someone who is valuing finances is like, hey, like I know you value your family, and that makes sense to me, and I want to like make sure that you feel validated in that. But right now, like we don't have the financial backing to like go on vacation with your family and all these things, because then we would be putting ourselves in the hole, right? Again, remember, if you're trying to position yourself to help other people, like how am I supposed to help your family if we aren't stable? Right? And having those connections and taking a step back, removing yourself from the original triggers and saying like, hey, like I see your perspective, but here's mine, right? And then it's a back and forth of respectful but assertive communication. And then that's how we get to like effective conflict management, right? And then also with that being said, sometimes conflict management doesn't happen all in one shot. It can get messy, but our job is to engage in repairing, right? The goal was never to be like, okay, well, I'm upset with you, so now I'm going to cut you off forever, right? Like, how does that benefit anybody, right? But let's get one more. Let's get one more. So there's a lot of collaboration. We want to forgive ourselves as well as others, right? And again, that's advanced, so that's going to be on your own time. Because also, I don't want to be the person to be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, like someone, uprooted your whole life, like forgive them. I'm not doing that. If you're forgiving anyone for any reason, that's going to be on your time because at the end of the day, who am I to tell you to let go of the pain that someone else has caused? And I understand that, right? If you choose to do it, forgive yourself. And then if you so choose, you can forgive the other person, but that is not necessarily a requirement. Remember, one of my previous readings, we talked about sometimes you gotta accept the apology you're never gonna get. That is an advanced forgiveness technique. That's advanced, right? And like sometimes we don't want to let go of it because that anger has been driving our progress up until this point, and we get nervous, we get scared that if I let go of the anger, then what was all of the suffering for, right? But we're not going to get there right now. And I get it. I understand. All right, one last card. What do we got to go? What do we got to know? Heal away addictions. Heal away addictions. Okay. It's time to let go of behaviors that are blocking you from your heart's desire. Ask Archangel Raphael to help you with this healing. Okay. So, right off the bat, okay, we're looking at the symbolism within the card. Water usually tends to correlate to our feelings, right? All right, I'm gonna say this, and some people aren't gonna like it, and that's okay. We're gonna hold space for that, okay? We can get addicted to the pain. Okay, we can get addicted to ruminating in our pain. We can get addicted into thinking about all of the ways things didn't work out for us. Okay, and you're probably thinking, like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would I be the pain, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're rocking with low dopamine, okay, and if you're engaging in a rumination process when it comes to feelings, your body, remember what we talked about, your body has these emotional bookmarks, right? So if you're thinking about the pain, how that person did you dirty, or like the thing that happened like 5 years ago, your body physiologically, when you stay with that memory, starts to remember, and you might feel your heart rate start going, right? And what we don't recognize is by ruminating about that situation or that traumatic memory or whatever it is, right? We are giving our brain the dopamine hit that it's looking for. This is also why, like, sometimes we will be picking fights. Again, I'm not saying this is good or bad behavior, but you need to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, how are you supposed to consciously choose to do something differently, right? So, when we're engaging in this rumination process and we're thinking about the situation or whatever it is, right? Physiologically, our posture starts to change, right? You ever talk about like how that one X did you, and you're like clenching your fist, and you're just like, oh my God, and we start getting riled up. That's what our body is trying to tell us, that like, hey, like, you're not back there, right? But your brain gets confused. Your brain gets confused. So I'm not gonna get into it, but you gotta let go. You gotta let that go, right? So any behaviors that are blocking you from your heart's desire, that could be, again, certain belief systems, that could be certain habits, again, like ruminating. Again, this is going to be controversial, please forgive me, but there's science back behind this. If us as ladies, we're more susceptible to depression because we will ruminate about the situation over and over again, right? And again, I apologize if that sounds sexist, but most often we will be navigating depression more often because we have been told to verbalize the pain. But when we're verbalizing the pain, we don't want to just kind of like think about the situation over and over again. We want to verbalize the pain and then process it, right? We don't want to just kind of keep repeating the same thing because we're unintentionally keeping ourselves stuck, okay? So when it comes to healing away certain behaviors, right? This could be, again, like this can be a couple of different things, right? If you have a habit of rumination, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be just ladies, like we just have a tendency to do this more often, okay? Because this can be for anybody. But if you're navigating certain things that you're trying to break away from, again, like certain thinking patterns, certain habits, certain communication patterns as well, right? How you assert yourself, how you express your feelings, right? If this has to do with avoidance, right? I forgot where I saw this. If I can find it, I'll put it in the comments or description. But they say like, the true generational curse is avoidance and self-neglect, right? Who do you notice neglects themselves the most, right? Individuals who are taught how to do that, right? It's actually like an honor, and it is a thing that is rewarded to self-sacrifice, right? So that could also be this, right? To stop pouring your cup into everything else if you don't got any left for yourself, right? Because you're not positioning yourself in a way that you're going to be successful. I mean, you could, but is it sustainable, right? So bridging the gap between all these cards, definitely calling upon a sense of community. Find your community. You may have an opportunity to work with individuals you never thought you would be working for. Keep an open mind, right? Because again, this is big picture. This is big picture, like collective healing, some type of project. This is going beyond like what our false ego thinks that we should be doing. Okay. You're going to need to call upon your strength. You're a lot stronger than you think you are. And then also, like, you might have to integrate that inner beast, right? So, again, remember, like, assertive, not aggressive communication, because that's not effective, right? And then you also have forgiving yourself. If you feel like it, again, like, I'm not telling anyone what to do, you can forgive the other person. Speak your truth, speak with love, respect, and assertiveness, okay? And also let go of any addictive tendencies that are no longer serving you. That could be, again, it might be emotional rumination. Again, I'm just saying that because of the imagery here with the water. This could also be emotional reactivity. This could be suppressing your feelings, and you suppress it so much to the point it just starts spilling over, right? This could be anything. Whoever this is for, you'll know what the addictive tendency is because it'll be a reoccurring pattern, okay? So besides that, I think that's about it for this reading. I appreciate your understanding in advance. But whoever this is for, again, if it resonates, take it. If it doesn't resonate, this one might not be for you. Okay? But besides that, I hope you have a amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. Okay? And then, as always, you are divinely protected, and I'm very grateful for you. If you stayed through the whole thing, I appreciate you. Today was a little bit long, but I was called to just, again, my throat chakra was, activated, so I wanted to make sure that I verbalized things in a assertive but compassionate way. Okay. And if this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by. You saw me on a little bit of a more assertive energy, and if that's not your thing, that's okay. It's not for everybody. But besides that, I hope you have a amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Take care.